but it takes walking all the way through it. It really does. Because if you just try to rush that mountaintop and try to show the world how you're not sad about it anymore, it'll come back. It'll come back to bite you. It does not go away. You have to deal with it all the way through. And when we do, when we really walk all the way through it, we find ourselves on the other side. And not only that, we find ourselves on the other side, but we also know that, how you said earlier, like with every baby, you change a little.
They say when a baby is born, so is a mother. But while you are there to help your baby grow into the person he or she is meant to be, who is there to help you? Many women feel lost and alone when they become mothers, wondering, who am I now? Sometimes it feels like the transformation from woman to mother is as radical as a caterpillar's transformation into a butterfly. Did you know that inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar literally turns into goop before it rearranges itself into a butterfly? This podcast is about the goop, what soul transformation looks like as you transition from being a woman to a mom. Your baby's growth matters, but yours does too. You're not alone. I'm your host, Brittany Ming. Welcome to the Motherhood Metamorphosis. All right, let's get started. Welcome to this episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis. I'm your host, Brittany Ming, and today we're talking to Jillian Benfield. Jillian is a former news anchor and reporter with a broadcast journalism degree from the University of Georgia. She and her husband got the surprise of their life when they found out their unborn son was rocking an extra chromosome, also known as Down syndrome. Jillian's writings about living an unexpected life have been featured on Good Morning America, The Today Show, and her review from home. So welcome, Jillian. I'm really excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Brittany.
So you just launched a book called The Gift of the Unexpected, and I'm so excited to talk about this because I feel like this has been a theme of my own life. I have my own little book out called Unexpected, so this just resonates with me, and I just want to hear your story and what inspired this book for you.
Sure. So I guess I'll take you back to 2013. I was a news anchor and reporter in Augusta, Georgia at that time. And I had just had my first child, Violet, with my husband, Andy. And then Andy is a dentist, and he had just finished dental school, and the Air Force was paying our dental school bill. So then, it was kind of like entering active duty, and they shipped us off to across the country to Las Vegas. And I took the year off on purpose, just because we were only going to be in that assignment for 1 year. And news contracts are typically 2 years. And it was just kind of the perfect time to take off. And I thought I would go back to TV news. And then on May 8th, 2014, I got a call from my husband saying, it's not good. We're going to Alamogordo, New Mexico. And there is not a TV station in Alamogordo, New Mexico, let alone a Target. So it was very unexpected and jarring because, we had put some European bases on our list. Like, it's like, okay, maybe I won't go back to work, but if I don't go back to work, it's going to be some grand adventure. But I had not factored in like not having the ability to not go back to work in the middle of nowhere. That was not in my
no work and no adventure.
Yes, exactly. So then that same day, believe it or not, I had a weird feeling, and that weird feeling told me to take a pregnancy test. And we were not trying. This was not in the plan. And I just had this strange thing, just, whispering. And I happened to have an old one in a drawer that somehow made the military move across the country, which, they pack everything. And I took it that day, and it was positive. And I thought, okay, God, okay, you want me to be a stay-at-home mom? I get it. Okay. And I thought I had it all figured out. And then we got to Alamogordo, and within 8 days of arriving, we found out that our unborn son likely had Down syndrome. Wow. So that's kind of the background of where this all started.
So how do you think this encounter, like this unexpected journey, kind of losing your career, a son that is going to have unexpected disability or new type of ability, maybe a child you hadn't expected, how do you think that has shaped the trajectory of your life? And how do you unpack this in your book?
For me, so much of the book is about basically having an identity crisis after the unexpected. It basically just stripped everything I thought, the way I thought my life was going to go. It changed all of that, but then it also made me realize how much my identity was attached to my ability. And
Mm,
a lot of my grief that I had over my son was based on my ignorance. And I talk about that a lot in the book. But I realize now, looking back, why this period was so dark for me in the first year or so was because I thought that all of us, our worthiness was attached to our worldly success,
mm,
and that's what I attached my worthiness to. So if I wasn't performing, if nobody knew my name, if I didn't have this shiny life that people envied, then I didn't have a worthy life. That's what I thought. Internally, I wasn't like fully putting this together, but that's looking back and doing a lot of work around this. That's where a lot of my grief resided. And so for me, how it has shaped me is I really had to walk all the way through my grief. I had to like research and dig into my own grief about why I was feeling this way. And what I ended up discovering was my true self, not the self that who thought equated success and worth to be the same, but like who I really was. And yeah, it's completely changed who I am. It's changed my career path, obviously. And I wouldn't have it any other way. That being said, for your listeners who have gone through anything similar, when your life takes a wide left turn and you don't recognize it anymore, it can be very painful.
yeah. I like how you talked about grief, and we discuss on the podcast a lot the goop. I have this metaphor of being in the goop. The idea that in the chrysalis, this caterpillar dissolves into goop before they transform into a butterfly. And you touched on grief, and I think that the goop a lot of times is grief. And we don't recognize it. We feel like we're in the dark. We're sad. We feel alone. We feel confused. And we can't always name that it's grief, but I think growth comes through grief. And for you, you said you had to move all the way through your grief before you found yourself on the other side. I think that motherhood can be so much like that because it can just turn everything upside down. A lot of women have careers, they have their college degrees, one, two, or three. They have an atmosphere or workplace where they feel like they have visible achievement, they have friends, they have, this whole life, and then they have a baby and your priorities shift. Something just shifts inside of you, but it's confusing and you are in the dark, and it can be like grief, even if you think like, oh, I've got this husband and I've got this baby, I have everything I ever wanted. Or maybe you have something unexpected like what you experienced, and you really have to find yourself again. What did you find was of value to you on the other side of that when you worked through your grief? How did you know when you were seeing the light again and you found light inside yourself?
Hmm. First of all, something that you said, it made me think about a line in the book where the part about the losing the career piece of it. And I would invent things to do so that Andy would recognize them, so that somebody would see me. And the only time anyone saw me was my daughter. Like the only applause I would get once motherhood started was from a game of peekaboo with my daughter. And it was devastating to not be seen or applauded like you were in your past. And I think motherhood can be disorienting for all of us in that way.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
and then the other piece of that you asked, where I found the light. I think things really started shifting for me And I think they were able to start shifting for me because I had done so much work in the grief. My grief was so all consuming. I had no choice but to sit under it, you
Mm.
know? And for me, that looked like a lot of time by myself. And I'm a very extroverted person. So that did not come naturally to me. It looked like a lot of reading. It looked to a lot of researching into, my theology and why I believed this was happening. And it took a lot of, maybe it's the journalist in me, but I think this is beneficial for anyone to start asking the deeper questions about life, really. And it was through that process that one day, Anderson, when he was about 10 weeks old, smiled his first real smile. It was like the sun came out for the first time in, like, it had been like, 5 months period total at that time. And I was able to start seeing the light again. And sometimes I think God or whatever you believe in puts people in our paths to point us to that light. But we have to be willing to see it. And we have to be in a place to be able to see it. So I think that it was walking all the way through that grief and processing and not running away from it, that I was able to see the light when I was ready. And it came through the form of a person, which it so often does. I believe that God's greatest desire is for us to belong to him by belonging to one another. I just feel like for me, that's my story. And that it was my son was able to be the light in the darkness.
I love that. That reminds me of I had twins very unexpectedly when we first got married, and it was a hard pregnancy. I was all alone, just taking care of these two little babies, and my sons were premature, and they didn't really smile until they were about 3 months. But I have this vivid memory of my son smiling at me, and I felt my heart break a little bit, but it was like breaking in a way where the light could come in
Yeah.
because I felt that connection for the first time. And I remember my husband would like hold the babies and he would be like, "Oh, I love you so much, little buddy." And I'm like, I don't feel that way.
Yeah.
And I felt like I couldn't say that to anyone
Yeah.
because what kind of mother doesn't love their child? And I could say like, I love them, but like, I didn't feel anything. But when he smiled at me and like my heart like broke, I remember going, oh, and like I teared up and I felt that connection for the first time. And I feel like you fall in love with your children at all different times.
Mhm.
And not everybody's journey looks the same. And we have to kind of let our journey unfold the way it's supposed to
Mhm.
and let ourselves unfold the way that we're supposed to, and realizing that there's no right way to do it. We just are, walking forward on our own path and in our relationship with our children.
Yeah.
So I like how you talked about how these big moments can cause us to ask the big questions. And I think that one big question that can seem like the smallest word is why. Like,
Mhm.
why did this happen? So,
Mhm.
what do you think the benefits are of asking why in unexpected moments? And how do we know when it's time to ask another question?
I think why, I feel like there's a lot of pushback against the question why. And I think, in my community, I guess, being a part of the Christian community, I think there's especially a big pushback against asking the question why. Yeah, like there's just, that's the wrong question and you just need to accept what's happening. But I don't think that's fair because God gave us brains, and why is the first question we all asked.
Yes. Why did this happen? Why me? Yeah.
Sure. Yes, those are very natural questions. And I think the benefit of asking why is it allows us to explore life's deeper meaning. And it allows us to see ourselves as one of a big, big world, and maybe open our eyes a little bit bigger than they had been before. If life had always been somewhat smooth for you, and that's not going to be all of your listeners' stories, but for me, life went pretty much like I planned throughout my life, right? Um, so I remember being a reporter, for instance, being a crime reporter and sitting across from people and thinking that there was some sort of invisible barrier between them and me. There was us and them, right? And I was on the side of us and they were on the side of them. And I think what happens, one of the benefits of the unexpected, is it starts tearing down that invisible wall. and you start entering life, real life, along with everyone else. And I think the question why is part of tearing down that barrier. And I think it also allows us to develop our own, philosophies and systematic theologies, or whatever, your belief system is, but it allows us to start thinking about those things, because it's really easy when something bad happens to someone to blame the victim. And we do this all the time, and we do it to protect ourselves, right? It's like we want to know, why did their car crash? Because we want to know that they were doing something wrong, because we don't want to think that could happen to us.
Mm-hmm.
We want to know why she got cancer, because maybe she wasn't treating her body right. Or do you see what I'm saying? Like, we look for reasons to blame the blameless in order to protect ourselves from the fact that we are also very fragile.
Yeah.
And I think the asking the why just gets us to to see how fragile life and precious life really is. And I think there does, though, come a point where you move beyond why, right? Like, none of us will ever know with certainty why bad things happen to us or to other people. I think it's okay to have, a philosophy, though. Like, I think this is why, but I can't hold it with such tight grasp either. I have to hold it loosely.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of where I've come to, is I have my ideas about the way God works in the world and the reason why bad things happen, but I hold it all with loose hands. And, for me, it has allowed me to be more human than I was before.
Yeah. So when you asked why yourself about why the loss of the career, why did Anderson have Down syndrome? How do you think answering those questions for yourself has transformed you as a woman on your journey?
I think asking the why has made me more empathetic than I was before. I think that it has also allowed me to see that my perception of life was so very narrow.
Mm.
I thought that there was this one path to happiness for me, and it included a husband and 3.5 typically developing children and a career that was flashy. And instead, what I found was my vision of life was just so small. And it kind of took the unexpected to not only open up my worldview, it completely changed my worldview, which in turn changes who I am.
Yeah.
And it also opened up the view I had of my own life. The unexpected really, and honestly, and I hope your listeners find hope in this, the unexpected eventually, with time, because this was not a short process, made me so much more brave than I was before,
Mm-hmm.
willing to take risks, and just seeing, I think when you are up close and personal to how fragile life is, when you have a child like me who has had medical complexities, and you have too, with having premature babies, when you really see how precious life is, you end up beginning to participate in this life in a whole new way. I mean, it takes choice. It does. You get the choice. You can let it make you super bitter. And I was bitter for a time. And I think that there's a time for that. But eventually you got to move beyond that. And I think one of the gifts of the unexpected is that it helps us to start, it just gives us a broader view of life and of ourselves. And it allows us to take good risks and find our true selves.
Yeah, I think that motherhood does make us brave. And not just brave as mothers, but like brave as women, and saying, like, my world has expanded not only to include another person or more people that you've given birth to, but also to this new person that I'm becoming. Because I think every time we have a child, or every time like we have another child, we become a new version of ourselves, and we have to say, okay, who am I now? What things am I shedding? And what things am I stepping into bravery in, as I'm letting go of what was past and stepping into maybe something that's unexpected?
Yeah.
So how can we handle unexpected seasons that don't necessarily have a bright side, that are hard, that we can't find like the silver lining in? Because it's not always easy. You talked about being bitter. Like not everything that we go through is like, oh, I'm going to learn such a great lesson from this and come out on the other side and everything's going to be great. Like I think we want that to be the story, but that's just not the story all the time.
So I think in our Western culture and in church culture, which has permeated Western culture,
Yes, no kidding.
yes, there is such a push to go from positive to positive. There is such a push to rush to the other side, to have our arms stretched overhead on that mountain peak, showing the world how fast we got over the sadness. And that's the mark of the strong. That's what people want from us.
Right.
But
The after story. Yeah.
yes, no, people want the after story. They don't want the yuck. But really, it takes going through the yuck. And for me, that going through the yuck was, like I said, a lot of time alone, a lot of time in prayer, a lot of reading, a lot of listening to very deep podcasts. I read so many books that are so boring, just trying to find the answers to life. And did I find the answers? No, but do I have a better understanding of how I believe the world works? Yes. And does that affect who I've become and how I interact in the world? Yes, it has. And there can be beauty in the unexpected, but it takes walking all the way through it. It really does. Because if you just try to rush that mountaintop and try to show the world how you're not sad about it anymore, it'll come back. It'll come back to bite you. It does
Yes.
not go away. You
Yeah.
have to deal with it all the way through. And when we do, when we really walk all the way through it, we find ourselves on the other side. And not only that, we find ourselves on the other side, but we also know that, how you said earlier, like with every baby, you change a little. We know that transformation is an ongoing process that doesn't really stop after the unexpected, because now our eyes are open wider than they were before, and we're open to new ideas and more possibilities than we were before.
Yeah. I remember when my son was first diagnosed with autism, or maybe we have a lot of diagnoses in our family. Like sometimes I call it an alphabet soup. But I remember when we were first getting all these diagnoses, people in my life kept saying, "It's going to get better. It's going to get better. It's going to get better." And I'm like, "How is it going to get better?" And we would pass like year anniversaries, first year anniversary of diagnosis, second year anniversary of diagnosis, and I'm like, I just don't really believe them anymore. Like, I don't see it getting better. I see us really, really struggling still. And a couple more years went by. And, we still had our struggles. We were still, with the IEP process and the therapies and more diagnoses. And I went to this, I taught this little sewing class on making weighted lap blankets for kids who have a hard time sitting still. That can be a tool that they use. So I was helping these moms. They were all special needs moms. And I was teaching them how to sew these lap blankets. And I was also listening to them talk and about how their kids were having meltdowns and sensory issues and things like that. And I had a moment of, I remember that. I remember when that was every day. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, oh my gosh, we're not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And we were still dealing with other things, but we weren't in that really, really intense place anymore. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, it has gotten better.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that at first. And I think that perspective can take a long time to happen. But then we
Mm-hmm.
realize, hey, I am at that good part. I'm at that better place.
Yeah.
And we didn't skip any steps and you went through the yuck, but
Mm-hmm.
we are different and things have changed and gotten better. And I think about that and I'm like, you know what? They were right. It did get better, but it's because I changed and it got better
Yeah.
for you because you read and you researched and you grieved and you changed.
Yeah.
And it just like pulls us and transforms us. And it's so hard and so sad. And then suddenly we look back and we're like, I am different now.
Yeah. Yeah. What I like to say is, I don't know what unexpected thing your listener has gone through or is going through. And I can't tell them that their circumstances are going to get better. But what I can tell you is that if you're willing to walk all the way through the unexpected, it can get better because you will be different.
Mm,
If you
yeah.
are willing to really to undergo the process, the gift of the unexpected is not always your circumstances changing. It's you changing.
Yeah. And I
And
think that's so hard because we're like, I don't want to change. It hurts so bad. And that's where I liked where you said I just had to be with myself. I had to be by myself. I had to let it hurt. I had to be bitter for a while. And you said sometimes that's what it takes. And I think then we grow out of that shell. You like it gets too tight and we're like, something's
yeah,
got to give.
yeah. And I think there's this little burst of light along the way that are guiding us to where we need to go, if we're paying attention. I think it's so important to pay attention. And kind of what you said earlier about realizing, looking around that room and realizing, oh, it has changed. Gosh, it's so important to look back, isn't it? Like we're a very looking forward culture,
Yes.
but it's so important to look back and take inventory of your life and to realize, oh, that really hard thing that isn't quite as hard anymore,
Mhm.
and it just ends up just making life richer and it fosters gratitude, which is really important too. So
And I think sometimes that when we're in that unexpected place, everything feels unfamiliar. And then when we live in that space more, I think life becomes more familiar and we're able to recognize, oh, this isn't my first time anymore. My surroundings are familiar. The situation is more familiar. I am more familiar to myself. And I think that's when we know that growth has happened, is
yeah,
then it doesn't feel so unexpected.
right. And I think too, like even going back to that room of with you and all the mothers, like I think one of the gifts of the unexpected too is we become exceptionally equipped to help others who have suffered or are suffering similarly to us, and you do get to that point in journey, and it's a back and forth thing. So like this week, you talked about IEPs. This week, I had to lean on a much older mom who's been there before for the IEP. She's exceptionally equipped to help me and what I always find to be one of my hardest weeks of the year, which is IEP week, right? And what a gift that is, and I know that one day, and I've also helped other people in that process and helping them be the best advocates they can be for their children. And gosh, that makes life so rewarding.
It does. For those listeners who don't know, the IEP is individual education plan. So if you have a child who has some special needs and special challenges at school, they have like a education plan. And man, that is so hard for me too. I cry and cry those weeks. I'm so tired. It's because you have to revisit all of your child's stuff that they've gone through from like birth on up, and you
Mhm.
have to relate it to a room of strangers. Some like you've never met these people before, and you have to hope that they're going to have your child's best interest at heart and like help them with their life and like keep moving forward. So that's why it can be super hard if people are wondering what an IEP is and maybe like why it's so hard for moms. But having that older mom or a mom who is further along in the journey can be so helpful. And I've had moms, other Herview moms who I've called and I'm like, I have to do this IEP and I keep crying all week. And yeah, it's so important to have that perspective. And I think that when you have walked that path, like you're going to be that kind of mom later for
Yeah.
somebody else because you were helped by the mom this week. And you're
Yeah.
going to be that for
I have
somebody else.
yes, I have a, chapter in the book called An Abundant Life. And part of that is about there's a place where we meet when we have met with people who have suffered similarly to us. And it's at the intersection of unexpected and transformed. And we
Mm,
meet there again and again. And we get through the things that we have to go through by being in it with each other.
I love that.
And I think one of the greatest gifts of the unexpected too is it really can, if you are willing to let it open you up to this, it can open you up to a whole new community, whatever that thing is for you, whether it's caring for elderly parents or caring for a child with a disability or becoming a widow, whatever that thing is, there is a community out there that both needs you and wants you, and through it, you need it too.
Hmm.
And I think that we were designed in such a way where we're called to live interdependent lives. We were never meant to do this alone. And I think that I isolated so much during those first initial unexpected months. And it was the opposite of what I needed to be doing. I needed to spend time alone, but I also needed to be open to people willing to be a part of my community. And now I am, and I'm so thankful for that. And I wouldn't be where I am today without that community.
Yeah, I think that motherhood can feel so isolating. I think it has been isolating for a lot of newer moms, especially since the pandemic. And I think it's just, I just am bringing this up to say, keep trying to connect, keep trying to find your people and be vulnerable and say, like, hey, has this been your experience? And be willing to say, me too. So, how do you think bringing up vulnerability? Because I love the idea of vulnerability and how you're sharing so honestly about your journey. So, how do you think living vulnerably helps us return to ourselves and who we really are inside?
I think it just allows us to take off the layers that we have attached to our identities that don't necessarily need to be there. Before the unexpected, I was the kind of person that I would tell my most inner circle about maybe what was going on in my life that wasn't perfect, but everyone else just got the standard answers. Oh, everything's great. How are you? Turn it back on them, right? And I thought that that made me desirable because I was living a desirable life. I looked the parts, I played the parts of perfection or, whatever, of striving, of ambition. And really, it made it so that I didn't have a deep connection with other people or with myself,
Mm.
really. And so when we start realizing those things we've hid behind, for me, like I said, I was a TV anchor. It was not leaving the house unless I looked like I was camera ready. That was one of my things. I had to protect myself. I couldn't show anyone who I really was in more ways more than one. But the unexpected crushed me at such a heavy rate in the beginning. It forced me to be vulnerable. I had to. I couldn't tell people everything was fine because I could barely lift my head off the pillow.
Yeah.
And in that way, it allowed me to connect with other people, and it allowed me to realize ideas about myself that needed to go, ideas about life that needed to go. But I had to be open to that. I had to be open to knowing that I had room to grow. And the only reason I knew I had room to grow was because I was willing to be vulnerable with myself and with others.
Yeah. I think those transitions can be really rough because we don't want to be in pain. And a lot of times we want to go back to the way things were.
Yes.
So, how do you think you would encourage people who just want to go back to the way things were before the unexpected came into their lives? How could you encourage them? How would your book encourage them if
Yeah.
they picked it up?
Sure. This might sound jarring, but you may never get your old life back, depending on what's happened. And I can tell you, my life has never been the same, but it has allowed me to look at things differently and to realize that life was never supposed to go that one way. There are so many ways life can take you. And what we can do is look for meaning and purpose and joy in the lives that we have. I would say that one of the things I talk about in my book is either whether we have religious beliefs that might think that if we believe a certain way, we're going to have a perfect life, or whether we have been born into privilege and everything has gone our way. And so we think that we're protected and we think life is going to go a certain way. It can be really disorienting when life takes this wide left turn. But what I actually think that we're promised is that we have abundant lives available to us. So in one day of parenting, and I talk about this in the book, I was prepping for my child's most important IEP meeting, which is their preschool to kindergarten transition. He struggled with his therapy session, and I just felt so down about that. And, he grabbed my face and kissed me before I left to this inclusion course that all these people, had gathered around and trying to make positive change in their community. And it was a harsh and lovely day. And altogether, it makes up an abundant life. And I think if we have eyes open to see, like, yes, those harsh elements may still always be present in your life. You know, the harsh element for me is parenting a severely disabled child in a world that is not accessible to him. And sometimes that comes with painful moments. And it has also opened me up to a world that I didn't know. It has made my life richer in so many ways because I'm not who I once was. I am more empathetic. I am, everything has changed. My views have changed. My politics has changed. My religion has changed. And I'm grateful for that. And I think that's what I would say to your listeners who are wanting life to go back to what it was. It may not, but there can be beauty on the other side. And those harsh things, they might always still exist, but that doesn't mean new beauty can't come. And I just think we have to have eyes open to see those spots where it is blooming.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Thank you, Jillian. I really love hearing your passion talking about this book, your eloquence, and just your wisdom's coming through in the way that you're talking about this. And I am excited for people to read your book. So where can we connect with you and get a copy of The Gift of the Unexpected?
So The Gift of the Unexpected is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Target online. It is, and some other places too. If you Google it, you're going to find it. And then with connecting with me, I am at Jillian Benfield on Facebook and Jillian Benfield blog on Instagram. And I also have 3 free ebooks on my website, jillianbenfield.com. And they cover a host of things. They are for both parents of kids with disabilities. And they're also, I have one called Working Through Weariness. And I think it would maybe appeal to a lot of your readers. So.
Yeah, I will definitely share the links to those. That's really exciting. All right. So to end our time, I like to ask these rapid fire questions. So are you ready for these?
I don't know. We're going to see.
All right. Well, the first one's very fun. Which Disney princess would you like to take out to coffee?
Oh, Tangled, the Rapunzel one.
Yes, she's so fun.
Yeah.
Would you rather spend a weekend at a cabin in the woods or in the city with great restaurants?
Does the wood, are we in a mountain in the woods?
Yes, the mountain. Yes, there's a mountain.
If there's the mountains, then I'm going. I don't want to be stuck in the woods, but if there's a mountain view, I'm there.
You're like, the mountain is essential. You can make it any scene you want, by a river, by the mountain.
Okay.
Yes.
I have to have other elements other than just trees. Like I mean, yeah. Okay. Yes.
That's great. What's an ordinary moment that brings you great joy?
I really like the moment after all the kids go to bed and just kind of my husband and I looking at each other like, we did it. Yes. You know, another day. And now it's like time alone with each other.
Yes, that's really good. That's a definite, you can feel that in your gut.
Yeah.
That's a moment.
Yeah.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Last show you binged and loved?
Ooh, well, I'm watching Chosen right now. So I'm currently watching that one and I really, really love it. I would say before that, Yellowstone.
Oh, I've heard both of those are really good. Go-to book, fiction or nonfiction?
Nonfiction.
When you were 5 years old, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A news anchor.
I love that. I love hearing what people wanted to be and then like what they actually did, because I feel like your little dreams when you're a little kid, like they really shape who you are. So that's good.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to?
I am looking forward to my husband is becoming a partner in his practice that he's in. He's an orthodontist. And I'm looking forward to that process being complete and watching him achieve his dreams.
Oh, that's great. Last one. Finish this sentence. Motherhood is
all encompassing.
That's a good one. I don't think anybody said that yet. So yeah, that's really good. Well, Jillian, thank you so much for being here. I am really glad we got to talk about this, and I really hope people will check out your book because it's going to be life-changing.
Thank you so much, Brittany. I really enjoyed our time together.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to this channel so you never miss an episode. Next, tell your friends. Podcasts are a slow growth type of social media, so promo works best when it's from person to person. If you know another mom who's in the goop right now, send her a text of encouragement and the link to the episode that is speaking to your heart right now. If you have a story about your own matrescence, the physical, emotional, hormonal, and social transition that occurs when someone becomes a mother, please leave a comment below. I want this channel to be a place where women can build community about the challenges and joys of their own motherhood metamorphosis. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope it encouraged you and gave you some good food for thought. If you ever have any questions, comments, or you'd like to reach out to me personally, you can email me at brittanyaming@gmail.com. Hi everyone, this is Brittany Ming from the Let me start over. It's been like 2 months since I've done an interview, so I feel like I'm out of practice.
No, you're going to be great.
Who are you talking to? I'm talking to my friend Jillian. Remember, I said that mommy needed to have some alone time, okay? I want to talk. Do you want to say hi to her?
Mm-hmm. Hi.
You can say hi.
Hi.
All right, hi. I need you to go play with your iPad, okay? And I need to finish talking to her, okay?
But I want to talk too.
I know, but you know what? This is time for mommy to record, and I really need you to go play in the living room or in the bedroom right now, okay?
Okay.
Okay, love you. Can you close the door? Close the door, please. Sorry, you're
No, it's okay. That could happen to us too,
yeah.
By the way. So
no, I thought what you were saying was really good. Okay, but I'm trying to
I don't remember where I was. I'm sorry.
I always have these bloopers at the end of some episodes, so when the kids come in, it's always good for good bloopers, and we can't remember where we were.
I wish I remember what I was saying. You were asking me how it's transformed me as a woman, and I was talking about how the unexpected,
making room for the unexpected.
Yeah,
Wet.
Your shirt is wet. Did you pee on it? Okay, I will help you get a new shirt as soon as I'm done, okay?
What do you need to take off my shirt?
Okay, I'll help you take off your shirt. Come here. Okay, arms up. Okay, can you go throw it in the laundry, please?
Yeah.
Okay. She is completely nude.
no worries.